Thank you very much for attending our second talk. I think it's about designing free space and creating free time. So first of all, we will introduce this time a little shorter our panelists. So we have Studio Drift. This is Ralf and Loneke. You know them from last Design Miami. They showcased maybe the most amazing piece. This was the drone sculpture flying over the Miami beach. And now a year passed, and they did the show at the AZULIK Museum in Amsterdam, and there were more drones to fly. Last time, 600 of them at Burning Man. We are very happy to have you here. A big applause for you. We are very, very happy to have a special guest that flew in from the rainforest in Tulum. We were there 5 days ago at the big world premiere of Umamai. He's the founder of Umamai, he's the creator of Umamai, but he's also the founder and creator of AZULIK that more people may know. And he showed us how we can create a space that is completely free of everything what we thought has to be in architecture, has to be fulfilled in planning of functions and rooms. You can do it completely different, and we are so happy that you found the time to be here. Thank you very much, Roth, Eduardo Neira. Then we have Michaela de Pury. Michaela de Pury is for us maybe the most important person in our advisory board because she was from the very beginning together with Simone de Pury with us, and a lot of the network that we created during the 1 year of Therme Art program is created because of her. Without her, we wouldn't sit here literally because we know Francis Quéré because of her introduction, and this is why we commissioned him to do this beautiful space. And Michaela, I can have not enough gratitude for your support of our program. Thank you so much. Then we have Alexander Groves from Studio Swine. Studio Swine is an art collective. Your beautiful partner is not on the stage, but I'm sure that she is in the room. Please raise your hand. She's there, yes. So thank you very much for being here. You will be, as Studio Drift, also part of our Therme Art program, and we are very happy to have you here. Mark, hello, the micro seems to stop working. Hello, hello. Mark Glimcher, yeah, now it's back. Thank you very much for being there. We signed yesterday with you together a joint venture that we announced yesterday to the public. It is about the work of Studio Drift. We have to say it, this is very important, that we are sitting here also because we are collaborators as we hope in the future that will be created with the artists together. And this will be a future that will be about freedom. And thank you so much for taking your time. And then last but not least, my dear partner, founder, president and chairman of the Therme Group that helped not only to co-create and co-curate this program, but is also the main brain about behind our technological development and the development of our company. And without him, I wouldn't be here and we wouldn't be here. So thank you very much, Robert, for being here. So the first question.
So the first question is for Roth. I wanted to ask you, because AZULIK and Umamai, as you told us, we went there and we spent 2 very intensive days together having intensive conversations and workshops. You told us a lot of stories about Mayans. And we know that the architecture and the projects that you have there, they are very inspired by the Mayans' ancient knowledge. And from the stories that you told us, we know that their attitude towards time and space is totally different than ours. And we wanted to know, do you think that we can really implement this attitude and their knowledge into the global urban planning nowadays?
I will try to speak from my heart, and my goal is to reach your heart. As long as I'm not fluent in English, I will use a translator. And because I want to be precise in what I say, I don't want to say much, but I want to transmit from here.
I think it's very important to hold the microphone like this, yes? Like this, not like this, but like this. So we have the full sound of your voices. This counts for everybody.
Sorry, you can repeat the last word of the question, because the last word...
If we can apply the concept of Maya time, the concept of freedom that we learned from you, if we can apply this in our cities, in our lives.
Yo creo que sería muy importante que nos tomáramos el tiempo para mirar a las comunidades nativas.
I think it would be very important to take our time and observe native communities.
No solamente las mayas, sino todas las comunidades originarias del mundo,
Not just Mayan communities, but originary communities around the world
están en profundo contacto con la naturaleza y con su cultura.
that are in close contact with nature and their culture.
Y nosotros no estamos en contacto ni con nuestra cultura, ni con nuestra naturaleza, y por eso estamos destrozando todo.
We are not in close contact with nature and our culture, and that's why we are destroying everything.
Y si tenemos la oportunidad de pasar unos días en una comunidad nativa,
And if we have the opportunity to spend a few days with a local community,
ayudando a sembrar o a cosechar o a tejer, o simplemente por estar ahí,
helping them grow, seed, or just spending time with them,
vamos a empezar a bajar de aquí hasta aquí.
we'll begin to descend from our mind to here, our heart.
Porque el pensamiento nos llevó al callejón sin salida donde estamos,
Because thinking is what led us to the closed alley that we find ourselves in.
y no vamos a salir pensando de ahí, vamos a salir sintiendo.
And we are not going to exit by thinking, we're going to exit by feeling.
Eso es lo que yo experimento todos los días cuando voy a construir.
This is what I experience every day when I go and construct.
Cada día hay 400 mayas que no hablan castellano, la mayoría,
Every day there's 400 Mayans that mostly don't speak Spanish,
most of them,
most of them.
y ellos me preguntan qué vamos a hacer y yo no tengo idea de qué es lo que vamos a hacer.
And they ask me what is it that we're going to do, and I don't have an answer for them.
Porque a lo mejor el día anterior pensaba yo en hacer una cocina en cierto lugar de la selva donde no cortamos ningún árbol.
Because maybe one day I think I want to build a kitchen and not tear down any trees.
Pero al día siguiente un árbol floreció en ese lugar.
But then the next day, a tree is growing in that same spot.
Y entonces todo cambia, porque donde un día la naturaleza abrió una puerta, al otro día la cerró y abrió otra.
So every day it's changing because one day nature is closing a door and the next day it's opening another door.
Entonces, por ejemplo, tomamos una manguera de plástico y le digo a una persona, ponte allí a 8 metros, ponte tú allí a 6, ponte tú allí a 4.
So for instance, we have a plastic hose and we say, put it over there and 600 meters or over there on the other corner.
but then was a wind, and the person can put la manguera,
the hose.
no la puede poner en la posición en que tenía que ser, y el otro se distrajo, y el otro es muy bajito y no llegó, entonces todo cambió.
And maybe we can't do it because a gust of wind comes and we're not able to, or someone cannot reach because they're too short, so everything is changing.
Y mientras tanto el árbol nos está hablando.
And in the meantime, the tree is speaking to us.
Entonces, ¿quién tomó la decisión? Es decir, la tomé yo, la tomó el viento, la tomó el árbol, la tomaron los que se equivocaron, fue por error, fue por azar. ¿Qué fue lo que logró que eso se hiciera?
So who made the decision? Was it me, or was it the tree? Was it the wind? Was it by chance? Was it by error?
Entonces creo que lo importante que hacemos ahí es tratar de reconectarnos con nosotros mismos primero, bajar, sentir.
So I think in those cases what's important is to connect with ourselves, to descend, feel,
Y entonces todo se vuelve sagrado alrededor,
and then everything around us becomes sacred.
porque empezamos a oír lo que están diciendo los árboles.
Because we begin to listen what the trees are saying,
Empezamos a oír lo que nos dice el viento,
and the wind,
porque todos ellos están ahí desde antes que nosotros.
because they have been there before us.
Y juntos podemos hacer algo con sentido,
And together we can do something meaningful.
pero no es pensando que lo vamos a hacer,
But it's not thinking,
es sintiendo,
it's feeling how we will do it.
porque según los mayas,
According to the Mayans,
estamos debajo de las estrellas y de las constelaciones mayas,
we are beneath the stars and the constellations,
y debajo tenemos el Xibalba,
and beneath us is the Xibalba,
que es lo sagrado, la fuente, the source, también es la muerte,
it's the source and death,
lo sagrado,
the sacred,
el inconsciente,
the unconscious,
y nosotros estamos a la mitad.
and we are in the middle.
Entonces, si nos conectamos con arriba y nos conectamos con abajo, y estamos en el centro, si estamos acá, entonces ese momento es el momento de la creación, es el momento mágico, porque estamos conectados con toda la Matrix.
So if we are in the middle of what's above us and beneath us, and we connect with that, then
Estamos conectados con nosotros mismos.
we are connected with ourselves and with the matrix.
This is actually, yeah. Sorry, just because this, what you just said, would be already the perfect closing line. Because actually you are bringing together all the different layers of creation process. And I don't want to interrupt you, but there's so much that is already, that you put already so much thought and so much soul that you put into your words, that I want the other panelists to have a chance to respond to this. And actually, I'm looking at Loneke and Ralf, because they created something that is also an artwork that is vulnerable. So it's something that is can fly only when the wind is allowing the drones to fly, for example. Or the bionic structures that are moving in accordance with the gravity. So they are very close to nature. And I wanted actually to open up also a little bit, like we just said, Loneke, that we come into a discussion modus between the panelists, how you see this possibility to implement this kind of knowledge, because we went there together. Actually, we were in AZULIK with Loneke and Ralf, and Robert was there, and obviously Roth was the host of this event. And I was so impressed how easy it is to be in the best environment. It is for free. You just go into the jungle. I mean, it's very expensive when you stay in this resort, but actually everybody could be there. Yes, everybody could come there. And I wanted to ask you, Loneke, how you see this mirrored, how we can get this experience back to our normal environment where we are. all the days? Because this is what you are doing somehow with your art. Yeah.
Well, I'm always surprised of where everyone is going, because everyone seems to go somewhere, needs to do something, needs to go to the next level, while everything is already there. I think that's also what you mean and what you're saying. What we are, I think, humans who don't need all this. We only need very, very few things. But somehow we have the feeling we need all sort of distraction and reasons and difficult, complex situations. So yeah, can you help me?
Yeah, sure. So it's also when we work, we basically come from our childhood interests. You know, like when you grow up, you discover certain things. They're very pure. They're very direct. You know, there's no politics. There's no, you know, bullshit around it. You're just interested in this engagement that you have at a young age because I mean, they're very pure. So I think what you're also trying to say is that, you know, in these processes of creation, and Roth does that as well, you try to stay as close as possible to yourself and your interest as you can. And for me to monitor if that's actually correct, what I'm doing, I look at my childhood, because nowadays I'm myself so influenced by everything I see, like even walking around a fair like this, I'm not even sure my own thoughts are my own. So I can only reference to myself in what I've experienced as a well, pure, you know, new human being. And yeah, so I try to work from that.
I mean, we are speaking about free time. We are speaking about creating an environment for humans that is not anymore based so much that we have all, I mean, to work every day 8 hours and most of the time of our lives. The newest sociological studies show that because of the lifespan that we have, we are already now working much less, like less than half of the time that we are alive. But our economy, our environment, our architecture, our cities are still based on the idea that we are most of the time working and then we have a little recreation time. Mark, you said something before here we started the talk, that free time was always through history only for
the rich.
exactly, for the rich.
Right. I think it's a very interesting topic. Thank you, Nikolai. Thank you, Therme. For sure, we're all seeing, you know, inspiring people who are trying to bring this level of consciousness to us, that there is something that we're missing from our lives, that we've built something and disrupted this kind of natural state. We can see that, you know, just to take it back, you know, we're surrounded here by people with free time and free space because they have free money, right? There is one kind of space, the art world. I have a gallery called the Pace Gallery in New York, and across the street there in the Art Basel Miami, we're curating people's free time and free space, right? They have free space on the walls of their giant mansions, their free time to not have to work, and they can come down here and spend a week looking at art and spending money on it. Okay. The same thing is true in here. We all know that. But we also can all feel that at the end of this 20th century avant-garde progress of art, that the people who are in power, the wealthy people, are starting to see that free space, free time, art, design needs to move towards a much larger group of people. They see that the disruption in the world needs a new approach for a few centuries, all of this art, luxury design was to demark us from them. And we have people, I think everybody now seeing, there is real danger in the continuation of that process. At some point, artists and designers centuries ago were creating spaces for everybody, cathedrals. And everybody here, here are artists who are creating experiences, artists who are, plunging into the environmental realities that we face. We realize we've got to do something with this. We realize art is powerful. Design, architecture has this power, and that it needs to be applied, that there's a real peril if it isn't applied. Yes? No?
So I would like to, Roth. So Studio Swine created a sculpture that is a big sense sculpture. It's a sculpture that is creating sense and that is creating an environment that is actually not only for the rich people. It's like Studio Drift, it's a typical experience. It's an experience that a lot of people can have and that is immediately working for the consciousness and subconsciousness of the viewer. Can you tell me something about how you see the interaction between art and these bigger populations, how you can enter into this kind of field?
Yeah, I think it was really interesting, Mark's point about, in the past, artists were, the patrons were like the church. And we created this sculpture for the Eden Project, and it was about cyanobacteria, which is the first life form 3 billion years ago to create oxygen using sunlight. And it created our breathable atmosphere. It's still responsible today for 70% of the oxygen we breathe. It's not actually from the rainforest, that's like 29%. 70% comes from the oceans and from this tiny microscopic bacteria, cyanobacteria. So we saw it as like a monument to the kind of forces in nature that we rely on for our very existence. And just as like an ancient fountain would have the river gods or gods of the sea, through science, we feel actually we can celebrate these forces that we rely on. And so we kind of saw this as a kind of fountain for the air. And I think that art has this ability to really kind of carve out time and space to consider invisible things around us, just like the Mayans were kind of looking at, creation and our kind of place within that.
Robert, tell me about your experience with really masses of people. We are now around 7 million people that we serve every year. And there's a story that Hans Ulrich is telling often about the Serpentine Pavilion, how there was a taxi driver running behind his kid, behind the ball that his kid lost. And then suddenly he was in the Serpentine Pavilion. And normally he wouldn't have this kind of art experience, but he was there. And this changed actually the life of the kid that now becomes an architect. We are working every day with millions of people. How is your experience, how this can be a life changer if you give the people a different environment?
So that's a tough question. Before I come to that, let me frame a few things. The first thing I want to frame is freedom. We are discussing about free space. We are discussing about free time. What Mark said, I think, was a very, very on-spot thing. So if you search about the word freedom, you will find that the origin of this word has basically 3 meanings. One is to love, the second one is friend, and the third one is peace. So basically, this is what we understood back in time, what freedom will mean to us. So are we free? Can somebody be free without disregarding everybody else around him? That's one question, which we have a little bit time, I think, to discuss. The second question that I think we need to frame, it's about the definitions of freedom. So you have basically two definitions of freedom. The first one is a positive one, which is our right to do things, speak out, everything we want. And the second one is a negative one, and this is get quite interesting. The negative one, it's the absence of being enslaved or being imprisoned. So basically, we consider that we are free if we are not enslaved and we are not imprisoned. So that's a negative version of our existence. So there are two basically philosophical questions about what is freedom and what is free time. Funny fact: if you Google free space, you will find a shooter game about freeing space. So that's another point. So this is actually we choose out a topic about free space, and I think the free space we need to create is the space where we are living. 60-70% of the population are living in the mega cities around the world. The question, I think the fundamental question is how we will go along in the next years to come. What is actually the basics of what technology will give us and how we will use that technology. We had a workshop in AZULIK, and we talked about technology, and it got very controversial, but we came to a point that we said in the end technology is inevitable. So if that's the fact, what's the outcome of that? And I think the only thing that leaves us is how we use technology. So we come to a point how we use that in our facility and how we use that in our architecture. And what we try to do is to create, a platform where we find truth, not one truth, not our truth, but the truth of everybody, the truth of Studio Drift, the truth of every asset we're working on, the truth of every architect we are working on. And all these truths can coexist. And this is actually what we are building. And this is actually what we're building in the center of the cities. And I think the most important truth is nature. I think if it's a synonym for me of truth, truth is nature. So this is what Roth did I think as a statement of what can be done. A statement of how you can try to find truth in nature. So how we are experiencing this with millions of people coming to our facilities. We try to be as truthful as we can. And we try to be as responsible as we can. Our facility is actually the only facility in the world which is LEED Platinum in our industry, which is a very tough thing to achieve, but it's a truthful thing if you can achieve it, because
LEED Platinum means that
LEED Platinum means that environmental and green. I think a lot of people will know what that is, but this is the highest standard of environmental and energy responsibility. So what we did with our friends in PACE, what we do with Michaela Depury and Simon, what we do with Studio Drift, what we try to do with all the people we engage is to find a way to bring all of this into the life of people in a truthful way, not in a commercial way. And this relates to what Mark says. I think if we are not finding the way that freedom will be a thing of coexistence of all different shapes of truth in a same environment, then the third synonym I said about freedom, which is peace, will be very tough to hold. So this is the point about how we try to do that for many people.
So Michaela, peace brings me directly to love. And Francis already introduced you as the one that will come up with, and you're right, I think, with this topic. How you think that the environment is responsible for love, for what Robert just said on the one hand, but also for our ability to, you're working in the art sector since many, many years. And it's a sector that is very free. So freedom has a very, very high standard. But it's also a sector that is, as Mark said, very, very closed and very, very elitarian. We have here two artists, and this is also interesting. It's actually two artist groups that are working with art that is not elitarian, that is open to everybody, that everybody can stand in front of and relate to. How you see this possibility that we use art to create a space for love and also for freedom?
I mean, artists are always free to think. They don't have just to think about necessities, which occur, of course, if you do an architectural building, first comes the needs, you know. So there's basically a parallel approach that is rather freer and maybe complementary and can add on to create something new. What I just wanted to say to Mark also is I think we are on a good way already, because if you look like Art Miami, it's such a platform, you know, you can link onto art through so many reasons. Adam Lindemann did the Bitcoin panel. So, for example, all people being interested in financials entered in. Okay, it's elitist, but still you have outside, you have art in spaces, in free spaces, and you're just falling over it, basically. Then Swiss Beats does, for example, right now also at the Faena at the same time, he has no commission art fair where people just can come and can, you know, and it frees up also artists because there is no commission involved. So I think there are many, many different ways to jump onto the art platform, which is embraced by everyone because there are many angles where you can enter, and it's much easier than before where art was really elitist, where there was just a small group, you know, and there was this high barrier. It has broken up, it's global, it's contemporary culture, it has been embraced by fashion, by music, by so many different people, you know, who communicated also, or also Instagram. Art is accessible, much more accessible than it was before, and reachable. So, yeah, what do I want to say? Basically, what I think what is important now is when artists come in, and like you do so beautifully now, that you create your thermal baths, but you bring in creative minds to complementary, basically, or complement or parallelly develop ideas to free it up, you know, to have a brainstorming for the best outcome. What I think is important is, and of course we're missing nature in big cities, and we are on the way, and we are very aware, and this awareness I think is very important also, that we're speaking about things, we are addressing, and we are a crowd that we all get together and try to move something, you know, that we love each other. I mean, that's maybe too much, but in a way that we all, and that Hans Ulrich said yesterday, it was this manifesto idea. Before you had groups that linked together to try to get something through. Now everyone is an individual, and only if we talk, if we try to embed the world by speaking, by doing things together, and by actively thinking, by thinking and formulating, I think one is already on the way. And what else do I want to say?
You remember when we met Hans Ulrich? Oh,
yeah.
Maybe Mark.
So I'm going to add something to that. So Michaela has been working to break open the model of how we function in the art world for a long time. But I think it's very important to say this isn't just, you know, a complete fantasy of paradise, you know, and everyone's going to enjoy the art and we're going to have art everywhere and everything's wonderful. You guys and Michaela for a long time, you have been thinking about a business model that makes this work, because it doesn't work without a business model. We have a business model across the street there about, we have an exhibition, we bring in the most important collectors, and we convince them this is the most important artist. That business model has worked very well for a very tiny number of people. The alternative, which has brought in millions and millions of people, is come make a $10 donation to this nonprofit institution and you can visit the rich people's art. That's a museum. Okay. That's not an economic model either. It's wonderful. We're so happy. I mean, it's such a great thing for our society. We'd be in a horrible place without our museums. But we need to think of a way to make this a positive model which will work. And if there's no economics and there's no way for it to work, it won't happen. I mentioned this a day ago in that other talk. You know, we saw experiential art racing ahead in the 1960s and the 1970s. We had Robert Irwin teaching all of us that art was a phenomenon, not an object. People were ready to accept it. And then it's 1979 and painting makes a huge resurgence, which is because there were great painters and there's nothing, but the reason that those painters made this huge resurgence is because these other artists who were trying to drive the system forward had no economic model. Saul LeWitt had no economic model except to make gouaches and other souvenirs so we could afford to do those wall drawings. So it is necessary. I mean, your guys is not a non-profit, Therme, right?
Are we?
They can use they can use proceeds to to work together to create something, to bring something forward. And what I wanted to just finish with is that what is for me very important is there's the outer space, but there's also the inner space and the inner freedom. And I think that is very important to work on this wherever I sit, to create my inner freedom, And of course, architecture has a huge contribution. We know it. We researched it from the Bauhaus, from the proportion, from antiquity of the divine proportions which come in the cosmos and in the music, etc., etc. But to find your inner freedom, to find your inner space, and to get back to your body, which links me then back to Therme and to what you do.
And to the next talk, actually.
Well, yeah. So we will actually not be a non-profit because we just did a deal. So.
No,
But another thing. So why are we all here? Why are we at the art fair? Why are we at the design fair? Are we all here to buy art? Probably just a few of us, maybe 5% here is really buying something. So are we just here, to be together, to meet nice, interesting people, to party? Probably all of us only like also 1% of the art of the pieces that we see. So is it really about the art? Is it really about what we're doing? Is it not in the end about spending time together, having a good time, connecting with each other, or connecting? That can be through the work, or it can be through something else. But so that's coming back to what is really valuable in the free space and the free time. Time is the only choice that we have how we want to spend it. And one of the things that we realized last year when we were flying with a flock of drones over the beach here in Miami, we didn't know. It was the first time we were seeing it ourselves. What happened was that everyone at the beach, the couple of hundred people who were there, all got silent at the same time, were all enjoying at the same time, and got in the same mood at the same time. And actually, maybe it wasn't the work that was so valuable, it was the experience to be there at that moment and feel so connected with all the people around you. And that makes us happy. So maybe we should re-question, are we here for possession, or are we here for experience?
May I answer? My answer. You give me 3 minutes. Can I do whatever I want? I can sing, dance, whatever. Okay. So why for 3 minutes? Why don't you embrace all together the whole experience? Connect with here. Because here is freedom, and here is fear. And we are here, and because we are separated, we are alone, and we suffer. But if we embrace, we can connect with everybody. 3 minutes, no more. Just please, in the position you are, embrace each other, please. Please. But please, with your eyes closed, don't think, just feel. It's only 3 minutes. Everybody will survive.
So, Rod, thank you very much for this example, how we can create free time and free space without any resources, but our free will. It's very important because this was architecture. This was design, and this is the most original form of human design. It's our body and ourselves that we are always forgetting about. So thank you so much for this experience. It was not planned.
I think we are now having a record. I think that's the only talk that where people hugged for 3 minutes. So that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Because so that we have.
So Michaela, because before I introduce the next talk with Hans-Ulrich Obrist, when Michaela and Simon de Pury introduced me to Hans-Ulrich Obrist, we were sitting at a dinner table, and after I told him about our Therme business, and I told him that we want to change the world. He said, "Oh, we have to build a city from artists, with artists and for artists." And actually, it's quite interesting because this vision was so big that I couldn't believe that he's responding in this way, and he's very, very serious about. And it's interesting because only when we went to AZULIK, to Tulum, to Umay, I saw that this is possible. It's just possible to do it, and I think now also it will be possible to do it everywhere else. So thank you so much for being here.